Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Passed the Genin test, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Silly little boys, muttered Haku, I'd hoped by now the two of you would have realized you should just surrender. Are you still talking? Shouted a Naruto clone just before it vanished in a puff of smoke under a barrage of Haku's attacks. I am, said Haku as another wave of needles exploded out of the mirrors, and if you children don't give up and allow Zabuza to go through with his plan, then you're going to S here. Sasuke dodged between the sly projectiles, avoiding most but being nicked by a few. He glared at the mirrors and his eyes twitched between them madly as he followed the brief flashes betraying his enemy's movements. This isn't helping. All I get are the after images. God damn this bastard. The Uchiha loosed another stream of fire, missing entirely as Haku dealt with yet another onslaught from Naruto. The blonde was struggling to keep up. Haku's movements were getting faster and faster. He could barely take time to summon more clones before the last wave was wiped out by the Hunter Nin. Kit, tell the other boy to use a wider spread and aim for the center of the dome, said Kyuubi hurriedly. We're running out of time if you want this to end well for any of us. I think I've got a better idea, said Naruto. The Uzumaki boy leapt in the air and spun in a circle, deflecting a dozen or so needles aimed for Sasuke and landed in front of his teammate. That was impressive, muttered Haku as he watched the boys stop to talk briefly. It's really a pity they're so stubborn since it means I probably have to K them for it, but then again I guess that is what makes them who they are. The Hunter Nin Street USD the two of them for a second as they turned about and looked around, undoubtedly wondering why they were being given a reprieve. Haku couldn't help but feel a little sorry for the both of them, standing here about to S simply because they had the bad luck of being Tazuna-san's escort. Last chance, yelled Haku from 100 different angles all at once, if you give up and go home I'll let you live. I'll even try to convince Zabuza-san to let your friends go. All you need to do is give us Tazuna and everybody gets out alive and happy. Sound good to you? For an instant Sasuke hesitated, not because he was contemplating Haku's offer in the least, but rather because he was thinking about Haku's motives. That ninja, said Sasuke to Naruto, even as Haku drew back and ready to attack again, really doesn't want to K us. Maybe we could take advantage of that. Sasuke, shouted Naruto angrily, don't tell me you're actually thinking of taking that B up on its offer. B, wondered Haku, half amused and partially insulted. Not in the least, growled Sasuke angrily, but quietly. Someone who works for a butcher like Goto is no better than that monster. Haku flinched at the accusation as Sasuke began to shout, who do you think you people are? It's bastards like you who are the reason innocent people have to S. Haku hesitated, not sure what to think. I think you misunderstand, said Haku, neither Zabuza nor I really work. So now I think it's your turn to S. Images of Fanvai's shallow grave burned behind Sasuke's eyes as he exploded from the ground, crushing the tiles under his stride as he rushed towards the nearest mirror. He was propelled solely by rage. White-hot chakra, fueled by will alone burned around Sasuke's fists while he performed the familiar seals. Even the Hunter Nin had almost no time to react, leaping out of the mirror less than a tenth of a second before Sasuke's fiery jutsu wiped it from existence. Haku soon found Sasuke to be taking the offensive, blasting mirror after mirror in the tight wall of icy glass with a technique far beyond what any genin should know. Sasuke literally began to burn with energy from some hidden reserve, and continued to bellow pillars of flame that chased the Hunter Nin from one mirror to the next. The Uchiha boy could see, clearly, his enemy's movements. It was almost like watching a mouse dart about, not easy to see but plainly visible, and what was more, he no longer saw after images, but shadows that ran where Haku soon followed. Had Sasuke broken his focus on incinerating Haku for even a second, he would have realized Naruto moving in slow motion to form the shadow clone seal, seemingly taking whole minutes just to move his hands together. The blonde was dumbfounded by Sasuke's sudden and ferocious attack. He'd never seen anything like it, mostly because he couldn't really see what was going on at all. To his eyes, Haku was still just an image in mirrors that Sasuke, the shimmering black blur, was chasing everywhere with streams of white fire while his cloak flapped in the frenzied motion. Where did Sasuke get all this energy? Wondered Naruto as the clone sprung into existence. He was nearly dry minutes ago, but now he's enraged. QB muttered. Oftentimes when humans are feeling guilty or hurt, they channel the feelings into wrath. Ninjas especially are innately good at focusing the hostile energies into a powerful storm of action. But he's using so much chakra, where did he get it all? QB was silent for a moment as the clones leapt into the air. Maybe it's the fact that he's an Uchiha. That clan tended to find strength in dire situations. Haku turned to wipe out this new enemy with a quick volley of frozen needles, breaking his focus on Sasuke just long enough to allow the furious Uchiha to catch up, and Sasuke soon found himself slamming his glowing fist into Haku's stomach as the two connected in mid-air with a rumble like thunder. Blood erupted from the hunter nin's mouth and splashed against the inside of the mask as the two figures fell to the ground. Sasuke landed on top, and utilized the motion to crush Haku into the tile. Naruto could only watch, half horrified as Sasuke got up and began to relentlessly kick Haku, driving his heel into the hunter's face and chest. Does it feel good when you're the one who's having the S beat out of you? Shouted Sasuke, does it? Do you think any of those people your boss butchered enjoyed it? What do you think was the last thing they thought before they SD? I guess we'll never know, but your hands and Goto's hands are soaking in their blood. Enough, yelled Naruto, running over as Haku stopped moving. He's S already. Sasuke didn't stop, but kept beating on the body before him. S isn't good enough. He shouted, he doesn't deserve an easy death. That's enough, said Naruto, putting his hand on his friend's shoulder. You're not going to bring anyone back by beating up a corpse. Sasuke whirled on Naruto and punched him in the cheek, knocking the Uzumaki to the ground. What do you know? You don't have an innocent little girl's blood on your head. Naruto stopped and stared up at Sasuke. For several seconds, neither one moved. They just stared into each other's eyes. Naruto was trying to wrap his mind around Sasuke's statement, while Sasuke was trying not to let himself haul off and attack his teammate. Sasuke, muttered Naruto. The Uchiha was silent, his raven eyes so severe they almost had a tint of crimson to them. What? The mirrors aren't gone. Sasuke spun around and looked up. Sure enough, the numerous sheets of glass left from his attack were not simply falling apart, as would have been the case with a summon when the controlling ninja SS, and what was worse, they were growing larger, and fusing together into a seamless dome of ice overhead. What the? Gasped Sasuke as the mirrors began to thicken and darken. The Uchiha looked for Haku's body, but the corpse was gone. I think playtime is over, said the hunter's familiarly calm voice from all around. I was planning on letting you go, but you spat in my face and kicked me while I was down. I'm not going to play anymore. Perhaps your turn to S has arrived. A single high-pitched whine split the air, followed by a dull thud. Naruto gasped, and began to turn all around to see what was happening. Sasuke looked down to see the glimmer of a single needle protruding from the center of his chest. There was no pain, it had been far too sudden for any kind of reaction, and as he began to fall backwards Sasuke looked up. But nowhere did he see Haku. What he did see was a horrific downpour of glimmering lights speeding towards him at mind-numbing speeds. Naruto glanced behind just in time to catch sight of Sasuke collapsing to the ground in a heap. The genin resembled nothing so much as pincushion. No less than hundreds of long needles stuck out of him from every angle. The thick, coarse cloak had afforded him no protection at all. Sasuke, shouted Naruto, taking a stride towards the raven-haired boy as he impacted the ground, driving the needles in his back their full length into him. The air again filled with the buzzing and thudding as Haku relentlessly sent wave after wave of the slide darts hurtling into Sasuke's chest and limbs, then stopped, refusing to finish the job but rather forced Sasuke to suffer. Naruto reached the Uchiha and clutched him up, cradling him as Sasuke's nearly limp body twitched in the shock. It had all happened so fast. 1 second Sasuke was destroying Haku, beating the hunter nin to death. Then in a flash the tables turned and Sasuke was laying in a quickly growing puddle of blood. Sasuke, whispered Naruto, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. Sasuke, don't you even think of S. Why? Groaned Sasuke in a raspy voice as he looked up at the dark towering above them with glazed eyes. I haven't had a chance to beat you yet, cocked Naruto, you have to stick around long enough for that at least. That's why. Sasuke closed his eyes, shook his head and let out a gurgled breath as the blood began to pool in the back of his tea. Why didn't I send her home? The boy's head lolled off to one side and he stopped breathing entirely. Naruto clenched his teeth and averted his gaze just as the dark dome of ice closed out the world entirely. He set Sasuke's body down and looked up to see a single image of Haku looking down at him from above. The nin in blue didn't move as Naruto screwed his eaves shut and tightened his fist so much it hurt. The scratch marks on Naruto's cheeks suddenly deepened into trenches as a glowing red mist began to seep from his body, providing the only light in the gloom. The skin on his fingers stretched, jetting his fingernails out into cruel talons while his teeth lengthened into fangs. Naruto's eyes burst open and flooded the chamber with a bloody light as he hungrily searched for his enemy. Spill blood with it, howled Kyuubi. This will be over quickly. What's going on in there? Whispered Kakashi to himself after the dome finished closing up. He glanced madly between Zabuza and Ino, who Zabuza was still holding at sword point, and from Tazuna behind him to the dome. This is beyond out of hand. Your little kiddies are getting said, laughed Zabuza, wrenching the unconscious Ino up higher and closer to the blade of his sword. No one has ever survived that, and no one ever will. They're finished. Kakashi scowled, trying desperately to think of some way to get to Ino. If he could secure the girl he might stand a chance, but taking down Zabuza would still be difficult even now that the demon of the mist was badly wounded and bleeding out his side like a stuck pig. The Junin began to slowly reach around his back, feeling for flash bomb in his vest as he went, but stopped as soon as Zabuza pressed the sword against Ino's T. I wouldn't even think about it, said Zabuza almost jovially, unless you want me to take her pretty little head off. Kakashi froze as a single drop of blood began to roll down Ino's N, then he turned to look at the dome. Several moments passed and nothing happened. Please, he mentally pleaded, Sasuke, Naruto, hurry up in there. We need you out here. At that instant the dome shook violently and fiery red cracks appeared all over it. Pulses ran through the ground and nearly knocked the unsuspecting ninjas to their knees, while Tazuna fell flat on his back. Not a second later, a second pulse sped through the air and the black dome exploded in a flash of red light, sending shrapnel out like a grenade and catching everyone off guard. Kakashi turned to see nothing remained of the structure but a pile of melting ice on the bridge. In the middle of all the destruction was Naruto. He blazed with a magnificent aura and glared up at Haku, who merely floated in mid-air some 20 feet off the ground. Both of the Uzumaki's wakizashi were clenched in a white-knuckled grip and the very metal of the weapons seemed to boil and froth in response to the demonic chakra. What the hell? Gasped Zabuza when he saw the Genin. Haku K him. Naruto looked over at the monster holding Ino captive and growled. He caught a glimpse of motion out of the corner of his eye and spun, simultaneously hurling the darker of his two swords at Haku, and rushing at Zabuza with inhuman speed. The missing nin had no time to do anything before the fiery red fist set into his face, causing him to drop Ino and sending him hurling backwards. The missing nin crashed into a pile of boxes, but hurriedly leapt up and charged at Naruto, flailing his massive sword as easily as if it were just a rapier. Haku dodged the blade flying for his face by a hair's breadth, feeling it nick his ear as it passed by. The nin in blue watched as Naruto laid into Zabuza and the two began to duel in a flurry of chaotic attacks, parries and war cries. Something in the hunter nin twinged, an instinct told him to dodge or and he burst up higher in the air, propelled by the special wind jutsu of flight. Even as he flew, Haku felt a searing edge into his calf and rend his leg open from his knee to his heel. He turned around and saw none other than Sasuke, holding Naruto's sword, sailing through the air in a tall arc. Impossible, muttered the hunter as he collapsed to the ground, clutching at his injured leg. You were Sasuke landed, facing away from Haku and stood up, blood dripping from the tip of the blade in his hand. He flicked his wrist and scattered the crimson liquid across the ground. Not even close, said the Uchiha boldly as he pulled a needle from his shoulder and tossed it to the ground, the last remaining trace of his wounds. He turned around, grinning wickedly and staring at Haku through crimson eyes, with irises as black as hell and shaped like wickedly curved throwing stars. One glance into those eyes sent a chill down Haku's spine. The two nin faced off after Haku tied a STS of cloth tightly around his leg, and stared each other down. Red explosions of chakra erupted all over the opposite sides of the bridge as Naruto and Zabuza dueled, but neither the hunter Nin nor Sasuke cared. This was going to be their duel and theirs alone. Zabuza is truly a monster, said Haku, and accepting the gift of Akatsuki has done nothing to weaken him, but even so, Haku paused to let the full effects of his words seep in. Despite his marvelous strength and ferocity, he's nothing compared to me. Sasuke hesitated and looked at Haku through his new eyes like a starving cat looks at a troublesome mouse. I suppose then, said the Uchiha with an air of pretension, that Naruto will make short work of him then. Sasuke moved his hand up in front of his face and flipped his bangs out of his eyes and glared at Haku. The air in front of the Uchiha exploded into a wall of white fire that rushed forwards at Haku with inhuman speeds, charring everything in its path and fusing the bridge's granite tiles into a solid sheet of glistening stone. The hunter Nin disappeared in a flash of speed and Sasuke spun around, raising the wakizashi as Haku appeared. There was a metallic ring as the weapons collided and sparks showered over the ground. Haku wrenched back and slashed again, this time with his other hand and another weapon. Sasuke blocked the attack and parried, sending Haku stumbling back. The black pinwheels in Sasuke's eyes spun like a dervish and Haku leapt away as a geyser of the white fire burst up underneath him, nearly igniting his cloak. Sasuke appeared behind the Nin in blue, who spun to block the short sword just in time to avert what would have been a fatal blow, and both of the Nins vanished. Clangs resounded throughout the arena as the two of them materialized only long enough to strike at one another before disappearing again. Flashes of light were the only proof of their positions, as the two met sometimes as high as 100 feet in the air or as low as beneath the bridge. Even to Kakashi, as he stole Ino and Tazuna to a safer location, it seemed that two hornets were relentlessly having at one another in a furious dance, while in a less chaotic, but just as sly battle, a burning Naruto attacked Zabuza relentlessly, driving him farther and farther towards the edge of the bridge. The missing Nin's sword was hacked nearly to pieces. Deep gashes were left wherever Naruto's blade made contact, and as the battle raged it was quickly becoming evident that Kyuubi was going to carry the day. Naruto's muscles surged with demonic chakra, and despite the nausea that was beginning to grip him, the genin carried on as if he were fine. Finally, Zabuza's grip slipped on his sword and the massive blade flew from his hand, clattering across the bridge and bumping into a crate. Zabuza turned and jumped for the sword with Naruto in hot pursuit. His massive hand clenched around the handle and Zabuza turned, raising the blade as his last security. Naruto slashed down on the large sword, and raised the blade and hacked again before the missing Nin could react. Again and again Naruto slashed at the blade, cutting deep wounds in it, frenzied from the adrenaline and surge of battle. Zabuza's arm sank lower with each blow, as with each strike he saw death a little more clearly. At last the blade snapped in two and Naruto's sword SD through the air on a course to stun Zabuza's skull. Screamed Naruto, his voice mingled with Kyuubi's own as the two personalities began to blend. Zabuza tried to roll away and threw up his arm in defense. Naruto's sword passed effortlessly through and bone, severing Zabuza's arm at the elbow as the missing Nin tried desperately to get away. Both ninjas howled, one in agony and the other in delight as the limb thudded to the ground and slowly began to drain of blood. "My arm!" bellowed Zabuza as he fell to the ground, clutching the stub protruding from his shoulder. Naruto walked over and picked up the severed limb, holding it up in front of him. The skin under his fingers began to char and crackle in face of the demonic energy as Naruto and Kyuubi began to laugh uproariously. "It's no longer anything of yours," bellowed the demon through its vessel, "and before long your head won't be either." "Little there," growled Zabuza, "Haku is going to." "Haku," laughed Naruto and Kyuubi, "will soon be lying face down in a pool of his own blood while I feed you to the sharks in tiny pieces." "Ah!" Naruto yelped as a shooting pain burned through his shoulders, and he turned his head to see a trio of needles sticking out of his jacket and Haku hovering in midair. The hunter Nin charged, sailing through the air straight for Naruto with an icy knife in each hand prepared to cut the Uzumaki to ribbons. Demon chakra surged through Naruto and the boy jumped forwards, impacting Haku and the two of them tumbled to the ground. The hunter Nin wretched in pain as the poisonous chakra instantly began to eat at his skin and burn away his energy. Sasuke appeared beside the contorted tangle of boss to watch. Haku furiously espered the blades into Naruto, not caring where he hit or even how much damage he did but just wanting desperately to get free of the deathly embrace. Had he not had a mask on, it would have been plain that the hunter's eyes were being dissolved away by the chakra and by now his skin was liquefying. After a dozen seconds of agonized screams and struggling, the body in Naruto's arms finally stopped moving and collapsed. Naruto stood up, still glowing with the chakra, and looked over at Sasuke, whose eyes still bore the strange markings. The two smiled, almost mischievously, as Naruto held out his fist and the Sasuke did the same. The two rapped their knuckles together as the red glow faded away and Sasuke's eyes returned to their normal state. Now, said Naruto, turning to where he'd left Zabuza, but the nin was gone. In his place stood Kakashi, his arms crossed and his eyes closed. A sudden wave of fatigue rolled over Sasuke and his knees buckled. He steadied himself and sat down as Naruto did the same to stave off a dizziness that was creeping in. Kakashi-sensei, muttered Naruto. The Junin looked up and walked over, then knelt down in front of the two Genin and smiled. He glanced between them for just a moment, then sat down and put his hands together. You two, he began, have more potential than I ever would have thought possible. Where's Zabuza? Asked Sasuke quietly as he rolled his head back and closed his eyes. We've got to go after him. No, not now, said Kakashi, shaking his head. Eventually yes, but for the present I'm amazed either of you can even speak. You need to rest for a while. But where is he? Asked Naruto. Don't worry, Kit, said Kyuubi, he got a massive dose of my chakra. He won't live to see another sunrise. You sure? Naruto asked the fox. Positive. His internal organs were literally falling apart. He's a man. Kakashi stood up and pointed off south, towards the channel. He's not our problem now. SC. The holds of the big barge floating in the waves channel were dark and cold as ever. So cold in fact that candle providing the only light in Goto's quarters was struggling to stay lit, while Goto himself pressed his back into the corner. His fat belly heaved as he panted and fear glinted in his eyes as he stared at the massive silhouette standing in his doorway. It was Zabuza. The missing nin held the last of Goto's guards by the T, dangling him off the floor as the man choked and retched for air. With a flick of the missing nin's wrist, the man's head flew back with a loud snap, and Zabuza let the body fall to the floor as he advanced towards Goto. Wait, yelled Goto, his voice breaking in terror as he held up his hand for Zabuza to stop. Don't kill me. It wasn't me. Goto glanced over at Toby, who was standing quietly in the corner of the room watching things unfold. It was him. Him, cried Goto, pointing at Toby, who slid his head off to one side. He told me to do it. It's not my fault. Oh, but it is, growled Zabuza. You were the one who hired Haku and I, and you were the one who arranged that grand disaster. So you are the one who's going to pay for Haku's death. Goto turned to Toby and dropped to his knees. Please, spare me, pleaded Goto. Zabuza is the one you should punish. He's the one who failed. Toby stifled a laugh and leaned back against the wall. He may have failed you, said the Akatsuki nin, but you failed me. So you are going to pay the price. Goto turned back to Zabuza and pressed against the wall as much as his girth would allow. You're fed, said Zabuza flatly, as Toby walked out of the room, shutting the door behind him. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.